Pam Bondi was invited to debate Robert De Niro on live TV, but it was a setup. He mocked her, called her a puppet, and thought he'd humiliate her in front of millions. But minutes later, his smirk disappeared. Pam pulled out one thing he never expected, and it changed everything. By the end, he walked off in silence, and she walked away with the nation's respect. Before we dive in, tell us where you're watching from, and subscribe so you don't miss what they tried to hide. This isn't just another celebrity meltdown. The Fox News anchor teased as cameras rolled live, her voice sharp with anticipation. Tonight, a Hollywood legend faces off with a former attorney general. Grab your popcorn. That's how it started. No one watching that night could have predicted what was about to unfold. Not the millions tuned in from across the country, not the studio audience buzzing with energy, and certainly not Robert De Niro, whose confidence practically oozed off the set. Dressed in a sleek navy blazer, De Niro leaned back in his chair, his arms casually folded. He looked ready to throw punches, the verbal kind. Across from him, sitting tall and composed in a magenta suit, was Pam Bondi. A legal powerhouse with a resume to match, Bondi wasn't here to smile politely. She was here with a purpose, and though the room tilted left, she didn't seem fazed. In fact, she looked like she'd been waiting for this moment for a very long time. The host, seated between them, gave a nervous glance to the producers off-screen. The air crackled with tension. Something big was coming. You could feel it, but no one knew the exact moment the conversation would catch fire. "Robert," the host began, trying to keep the tone light. "You've been outspoken about your criticism of President Trump. Care to explain what's behind your latest comment, calling him a, quote, national disaster?" De Niro barely waited a beat. "I'll say it again," he said, his voice steady but brimming with condescension. "Trump is a national disaster. Period. And people like her," he jerked his thumb toward Bondi without even looking at her, "enable him. That's the problem. She's not here to defend the country. She's here to protect a reality TV star who thinks he's a king." The audience erupted in applause. Some whistled, others clapped furiously. De Niro smirked, basking in the praise like a veteran actor nailing his final monologue. Pam Bondi didn't blink. She slowly turned her head toward him, her expression unreadable. The host glanced at her, half expecting a flustered defense, or at least some hesitation, but instead Bondi tilted her head slightly and smiled. Not a smile of amusement, a smile of certainty. "Robert," she said, her voice clear and calm. "I find it interesting that you're so quick to judge when just a few years ago you were singing praises about President Obama, despite his administration deporting more people than Trump's ever did." The room quieted slightly. De Niro furrowed his brow. "But that doesn't fit your narrative today, does it?" Bondi added smoothly. "Back then, you called Obama a symbol of hope. Now you mock every effort Trump has made to strengthen our borders, improve our economy, and keep Americans safe. Why the flip? Or is this just Hollywood politics?" The crowd didn't know how to respond. A few murmurs rose. De Niro looked momentarily thrown but recovered quickly, waving a hand. "Oh, please," he scoffed. "You're just parroting Fox News talking points. That's all you ever do. You don't think for yourself. You're just another puppet in the machine." Bondi leaned forward slightly. "A puppet," she repeated, her voice just a notch lower, more controlled. "Let me explain something to you, Robert. I spent years in a courtroom fighting real criminals, holding real people accountable. I've prosecuted murderers, cartels, and corrupt officials. I don't answer to Hollywood. I answer to the Constitution." That line, "I answered to the Constitution," landed like a thunderclap. A pocket of the audience clapped instinctively before realizing they were veering off the script of the usual late-night dynamic. Others stayed silent, eyes fixed on the unfolding clash. The energy in the room shifted. The smugness on De Niro's face began to fade just slightly, but the real moment hadn't arrived yet. Not even close, because as intense as that first exchange was, it was only the beginning. The real fireworks, The viral moment that would shatter Twitter feeds and make headlines for days hadn't happened yet. But it was coming, and the thing no one knew. Pam Bondi wasn't just there to defend a president. She was there to expose something she'd been holding on to, something Darrow never thought would come up. And when it did, the whole studio would go silent. So silent even the cameras seemed to hold their breath. But that's later. For now, the first shot had been fired, and it was clear. Pam Bondi wasn't backing down. The cameras kept rolling, but something had shifted. The smirks were gone. The applause had quieted. The crowd, which had been firmly in Darrow's corner, was now watching with curiosity and caution. Pam Bondi wasn't what they expected. She didn't yell. She didn't flinch. She didn't take Darrow's bait. She just responded with facts, with calm authority, and with a clarity that made even the host raise an eyebrow. Darrow tried to wrestle the moment back. "Pam, let's not pretend Trump's administration was some constitutional utopia," he said, voice louder now, hands animated. "Caging kids at the border, rolling back environmental protections, dividing this country like no one else ever has. That's your hero." Bondi didn't miss a beat. "You talk about cages, Robert," she said firmly, "but those detention facilities were built under the Obama administration. The photos everyone saw in 2018, taken in 2014. Look it up." That struck a nerve. The audience murmured again. Some surprised, others unsure. The host glanced to his notes but didn't intervene. The two were doing just fine on their own. "And let's talk about division," Bondi continued. "You blame Trump for dividing America, but what exactly are you doing right now? Coming on national TV to insult half the country, mocking anyone who doesn't think like you? Does that unite people? Or does it just make you feel good in your bubble?" Darrow chuckled bitterly, but it didn't have the power it did 10 minutes ago. "You're twisting this," he said. "You're defending the indefensible." "I'm defending reality," Bondi replied. "Not a fantasy written by late-night comedy writers or political Instagram accounts." Darrow sat back, visibly annoyed. "You've got your rehearsed lines," he muttered. "That's cute." Bondi smiled again, but this time it was sharper. "No, Robert," she said, leaning in slightly. "What I've got is a law degree, 20 years in prosecution, and a deep respect for this country's founding principles. I don't play characters. I face facts. You play tough guys in movies. I deal with real ones in court." A ripple ran through the audience. Someone in the back let out an involuntary whoa. For the first time, Darrow didn't reply immediately. He glanced off stage, took a sip of water, adjusted his seat, and just like that, the illusion of dominance began to crack. Pam Bondi didn't attack him as a celebrity. She dismantled the weight of his arguments while respecting the man's fame. She didn't ridicule, she revealed, and it was starting to work. The host tried to ease the heat. "Let's refocus for a moment," he said quickly. "Pam, Robert, what do you each think is the single greatest threat to America right now?" Bondi answered instantly.